Hypothesize. I have had several questions. One gentleman asking me about my jaw, asking me if I had ever had a stroke because of the manner in which I speak and the way my jaw operates. I fractured and dislocated my jaw, which I've said before, which causes affects my speech, so please try to deal with it. Another gentleman asked me how I believe that in past data I have been able to pass data, the combined data of mankind. He's asked how did it take the combined data of mankind for me to locate the causes and now cure for aging and premature death. Well, what if I told you I could point in history thousands of years ago where it was stated that the genome of the worm was the genome of mankind, was more closely related to the genome of mankind? What if I told you I could point out thousands of years ago in man's data, combined data of ancient history to this day, the stated word that black mold causes cancer? What if I told you it was stated thousands of years ago that fat and the blood of animals was not to be eaten because it would cause diseases in our body? Well, I can do that. Here, let's try to do so quickly. The Greeks hypothesized everything. They had hypothesis of atoms and different things that science is still proving their word and theory this day on the matter of the universe, atoms and the string theory, different things such as this. And the Greeks have affected what I do, and part of the cure for aging I found in Greek writings, and part of the cure for aging and causes of aging I found in the writings of the ancient Hebrew. And I've even found part of the cure in writings of scientists in the 1800s. So let's try to get into this if my voice will allow me today. I studied the Hebrew history, which that's what the Bible is. The Hebrew Bible is the history of the Hebrew people, to where the Greeks have many books of different philosophers, which we could have brought that into one book and called it the Book of the Greeks. But the Hebrew Bible is the book of the Hebrew philosophers. Now you see, the philosophers of Greece prophesied that they felt, through a theology of theirs, of a hypothesis of theirs, that they felt all matter was made up of little tiny atoms. So the Hebrew philosophers, which are the Hebrew prophets, they prophesy and they hypothesize, what I call it, hypothesize. The Greeks had hypothesis and they hypothesize, and the Hebrew prophets hypothesize, prophecy and hypothesis put into one combined statement. They hypothesize that there was going to be things take place in the future that science is now proving conclusively. And it's amazing, in the Hebrew, what they just came out and stated would be this day and time. And the hypothesizer, the philosopher Isaiah, who hypothesized and prophesied that God, they felt through their genome that they could hear God, and they felt God had came unto them, and they believed strongly that God came unto them through their genome. Being the created man long ago, built man long ago, had instilled in their genome hypothesis and prophecies, and had literally came unto them, they stated. And I reason with you, you make the decision you be the judge, whether you believe God came unto them, or they heard God through their very genome, because God is in their genome, their creator. That created mankind was in the genome of the Greeks and in the genome of the Hebrews, to where they was able to feel and finally say, I have got a theory here. I've got a hypothesis, so let me state my hypothesis, and I hope I can prove it someday, or someone else will prove it, but I'm going to state it. And the Greeks have been proven greatly, and the Hebrew hypothesizers, the prophets, are proven conclusively this day in science. So let's begin. I just asked you at the beginning of this film, what if I could tell you, would your reasoning accept it, if I could tell you that the worm's genome being close to man's genome, being actually as man's genome, was written thousands of years ago? Here is my proof. And here is a way you could say, you know what, this man's been examining history of mankind, and he's seen ways to find death and its causes, aging and its causes, and he's even found the cure. So believe me, my friends, I know the molecules. I found the molecules in ancient writings of the Greeks, the Romans, the Hebrew, and I found it in the 1800s, the writing of scientists in the 1800s, and I can even find it today in the writings of mankind and the researchers and scientists of today. Okay, in the writings of David, the Psalms of David, and in the book of Job, the men speaking in the book of Job, and in the book of Mark in the New Testament of the Hebrew philosophers, the Hebrew hypothesis of these men, these hypotheses of these men stated in the book of Mark that men are worms. In the book of Job, in the books of David, even in the book of Isaiah, I believe, it is written, yes, it's definitely written in Isaiah, and in the book of Mark, it is written that mankind, are a species of worm. Is that a terrible thing? No, it is not. We are a very, very complicated, very fearfully made species of worm called mankind. Okay, now I've just told you that. You could look it up. This is how in past data I have found science. Now, let's go to the book of Leviticus, and we will find that God tells us and tells his priests not to eat the blood of animals. And you find today, to where you see in the news, men drinking the blood of deers after they kill these deer and hunting. And you find in the news people dying from bad meat because they ate raw meat, and the elderly and the infants and such dying or getting severe sickness from these raw meats and such. And you find in science now, just over the last few years, over the last few decades, that fat is a bad thing for mankind to have. Well, you find in the books of the Torah where God stated the history, you see, that is the history of the Hebrew. That is medical history of the Hebrew. To where we have medical history of the Greeks, such as Hippocrates speaks of the medical beginnings of the Greek medical studies. Well, this is the medical and scientific writings of the Hebrew. You find there, he says, do not eat the fat, eat the meat, but burn the fat. Do not drink, do not eat the blood, because therein is life. He didn't mean the life of mankind like it was voodoo or something. He was saying there's life forms in the blood you don't want to eat. Because if you do, you're going to get diseases and even maybe start plagues from eating and drinking the blood. So when you see the French starting the rare foods that the culinary industry of the world has finally began, and you see the Japanese and others eating raw fish, and it's a going thing right now, but then science is screaming at them saying, look, you're getting parasites from raw fish, eating sushi, and you're getting diseases from eating raw meats. Don't eat your raw meats, cook them done to a temperature to where you can be satisfied that this meat has killed all the bacteria while it was cooked. The cooking has killed all the bacteria. Well, now let's talk about the book of Leviticus again, the history of the prophets, the philosophers, and the medical scientists of the Hebrew people, the amazing history of the Hebrew people, to where they stated that their God had told them. Now you tell me, was it through their very genome and they heard him speaking to them? Or did God literally come unto them? I know that answer. I'm giving it to you to think and ponder. I know the answer. Anyway, let's go to the book of Leviticus. I believe it is the 17th chapter. Now that I'm discussing this, it's in the book of Leviticus. But he speaks of the mold and the mildew of a home must be destroyed, must be cleaned and purged from a home. And he stated it was a leprosy of the house. A leprosy. Saying that it will get people sick. Now, just over the last 15 years or so, it's become very dramatic that science keeps saying, don't be around black mold. Don't be around mildew. Don't be around mold of any kind. If you do, you're going to have respiratory problems such as me, and you're going to have cancers. You're going to have other diseases that you're going to contract from being exposed to black mold and mildew. Now God told them, there's a leprosy of this house. Mold and mildew, burn it. Burn this stuff. Destroy it. It is bad for you. And if you can't clean that house good enough, destroy it. The same statement science is just now made in science was made in the Hebrew history of their medical researchers long ago, thousands of years ago. The amazing Hebrew history of their philosophers and medical researchers came to the conclusion and said that they literally heard their God tell them to dismantle that house and take it out of the village. Take it away and destroy it if they cannot clean it properly enough to where it won't make them sick any longer. Now here's the amazing thing. He called it a leprosy of the house. Science this day has studied all forms of fungus, yeast, mildew, leaven called by the Bible, and said not to eat leaven, and said leaven was not good for you. And science has just now came to that conclusion. Antifungal diets, anti-leaven diets. But God made an amazing statement there, and these researchers, they said it was their God, told them was it through their genome, through that being instilled in their brain, and they were so intuitive, or did their God literally come to them and speak to them? I know the answer, do you? But God called it a leprosy of the house, and science has now found that the cause of leprosy is one of the forms of mold and mycobacteria that make black mildew and mold in homes. Same phylum, same family. It's amazing. But you're asking me, people look at me puzzled. Now you see the Muslims, which they took their religion from 600 years after the New Testament. They took the New Testament and the Old Testament and made the Muslim religion. They altered it somewhat, but they still speak in there of the books of Leviticus and the Torah, and they speak of jinns, and the Greeks spoke of demons, and the Hebrews spoke of the unclean spirits in the New Testament. So what have we found today? The New Testament told us, and some of the writings of the ancient rabbis of the Hebrew, of the Judean religion, of the Judaism, they write that there is things in the air that we cannot see. and they enter you and they cause you to act certain ways and they cause you to sin, they said, do unnatural things of mankind. What has science just proven over the last few decades and very extensively over the last 5 or 10 years? They found that bacteria, things you can't see in the air, they enter us and they get in our body and they make neurotoxins. They make neurochemicals that become transmitters to our brain, and they cause us to act strangely. They cause us, and I'm telling you this, I've been telling this to science, and I've been telling them for years. I've told them there's 8 different species of bacteria that work as one to bring mankind into aging. I found the causes and the cure, the molecules to end it, but they were told long ago by the ancient medical philosophers, researchers, prophets, and doctors that there were things that you can't see in the air, and they enter you, and they make you do things that ain't right. They make you do things that are unusual. Science has proven there's certain diseases that make you eat certain things. There's certain bacteria that now send neurotransmitters to the brain that ask for chocolate. That's all they've proven. But what they're soon to find out, and I have been screaming for years to science to let me in their laboratories, to give me grants, funds, donations, that they will find that these same bacteria are sending neurotransmitters to men, telling them to be homosexual, sending neurotransmitters, neurochemicals to their brain from the gullet, from the gut, from their intestines, telling them, I want you to kill yourself. They're saying because they sense that these people are feeling depressed, they feel the chemicals, and they sense the neurotransmitters of the mind of the people. They're very depressed over something horrible in their life, and they're sending neurochemicals to them saying, kill yourself. And that is what the mighty researcher, the great Lord Jesus Christ, the great Lord Jesus, I consider him a great scientist, a great biologist. He was a great researcher. He was a mighty prophet, philosopher, a man that sensed his God through his very genome because he was born of God and he heard his God talking to him. The ultramicrobic life form, the highest life form in the universe that is a microbic life form, he heard his God speaking to him through neurotransmitters, through his genome, and he told us that there are things that make us be whores, that make us be drunks, that make us be drug users. This is what science is just now proving. And the philosophers, the hypothesizers, the hypotheses of the past, the prophecies of the past, the Hebrew philosophers that had hypotheses that are now this day proven as theory and law. Same as the Greeks. They hypothesize demons entering them and causing diseases. And then this day we have found that they are true. The Muslims state in their religion that there are jinns in the air, that what they call the evil spirits, the unclean spirits spoken of by Jesus Christ, spoken of by Paul of Tarsus, the principalities of the air, these great scientists of the past who hypothesize that we had things coming to us from the air around us, entering us and causing us to do strange acts. So, there is part of the way I have went through past data to find the answer to today's problems. You go deeper into the Greek history, deeper into the Roman history, deeper into the history of the Hebrew, and you find the antigen drift and the antigen shift of the bacteria in the air to where they finally got enough of man's genome to where they could bring more diseases upon, more plagues and pestilence upon mankind. The antigen drift and the antigen shift. A major shift in the bacteria around us because they finally got the genome of man and was able to begin to enter the genome of mankind. I pray this answers your question. I've went on a little longer than I should have here maybe, I'm gasping for breath, and my jaw is trying to lock up on me. So, with much respect, I answered your questions. What is the problem with my jaw? Have I had a stroke? No, I hadn't had a stroke. I was asked. I haven't had a stroke. And here's the answer to how did I find past data to take this day to end aging and premature death. I have the cure. I found the molecules needed to formulate a cure for aging. My name is Rodney Paul Berry. I am a word researcher. I've answered your question. Contact us with funds, with research grants, with donations, because, my friends, we are this day going to take the combined data from this day back, and we're going to end aging, you and me. Much respect. My name is Rodney Berry.